Boo! Welcome to MegoxCast. I am your host, John, joined by.
Trinity.
Yes, for this episode. Today, we will talk about horror films. Now, Trinity, talk a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Trinity. I am currently a junior in college, and I am a big horror fanatic, and that is my favorite genre.
That is a very wide genre, I'd say, right?
Very wide genre, a lot of subgenres within it too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I wanted to just, you know, make it a a distinction. So I decided to add this in. Horror versus thriller. Trinity, I can throw this onto you, but do you feel like there is a big difference between like a horror film versus a thriller film?
I do. I really do. A lot of the times when people think about horror, I feel like they make connections to kind of possession films and like slasher films. But I feel like there's a big difference because personally for me, I feel like everyone knows The Shining. I personally consider that more of a psychological thriller versus a horror film. So I really do think there's a big distinction between the two.
Yeah, you like the Shining, right?
I do. I love The
Yeah,
Shining.
that's good. Yeah, no, I feel like there's a big difference between horror and thriller as well. I mean, to be honest with you, when I think of like horror, I think scary. Of course, that's like a like I don't know if that's interchangeable. Would you say, or you think they're different?
I
Like
think it's a little different. When I kind of think of psychological thrillers, I kind of think of the films that mess with your head and kind of give you that sense of being freaked out. And that's why I think Shining is one of the biggest ones for me because it's such a long film. Like, it's almost 3 hours and it's so slow, but you can see like Jack falling into this like madness state. And I really love films like those because it's such a slow development, but the actors within, like, it's always such a good performance. And I feel like it really can mess up some people. And I like to say that even The Exorcist is like a psychological thriller because that one can really mess with you too. So I do think there's a big distinction between the two.
oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when I think of like thrillers, I do think of psychological thrillers, like you're saying, but I don't know. I mean, I always associate thriller with drama. I don't know if you feel like that sometimes. I don't know. I just feel like for example, one of my favorite movies, Parasite. I wouldn't consider that like a horror film, but I would feel like it's kind of like a thriller in some ways because some weird elements where it's like, whoa, like what's going on?
Yeah, I
Like
could definitely see that. Yeah, I feel like every time I've really thought of a thriller in a horror sense, I've always thought of the more psychological kind of aspects of it. Like, does it freak you out so much that you can't go to sleep at night, or does it just kind of mess with your head and like you kind of follow the same track? Like, that's normally how I thought of thriller, but there's definitely multiple ways you can perceive it.
yeah. Um, yeah. Did you? Yeah. I mean, I think we've covered what the main difference is between horror film and a thriller film. Did you want to say anything else, or did you want to go to the next topic?
Um, we could go to the next topic. I feel like honestly there is a big distinction between horror and thriller, but at the same time I feel like in the end it's just kind of a subgenre of horror. It's like kind of its own little area that people can appreciate, and you just kind of have to find those films where it doesn't necessarily involve, slashers or possession. Like, there's a lot of films where it's very psychological, and you know it's definitely something to look for.
Yeah. All right then. Let's go to favorite horror films. What would you say is like your your main favorite horror films when you talk to anybody and say, "Oh, these are my favorite horror films."
Um, Definitely top 2 is Scream and Lost Boys. Those are my top 2. Um, but I have a very deep love for Halloween, like the Michael Myers. I love Freddy Krueger. Like my favorite one is probably Dream Warriors. Like those are definitely some of my top films.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you like more um oh, can you say that
Slasher.
more and more time? Yeah, slasher.
Slasher films,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I love slasher films, though that's probably my favorite genre of horror.
Yeah. So you'd say you like slasher, and then psychological is like one of your like other favorites, but you'd say slasher's just up there.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I find those films more enjoyable. Like, those are the ones that I'll tell people, like, I'll watch at, like, 3 a.m. in the morning and automatically go to sleep. Like, they don't bother me, like, those are some of my favorite films to watch.
You think it's the gore, or you think it's just the characters in it, or the situations?
Uh, I think it's the characters. I mean, especially what drew me to Scream was because I was probably, like, 11, 12 maybe when I watched it. Um, I love the comedy, specifically in that one. I thought having the aspects of where it was still kind of the slasher and kind of that fear of like, "Oh my god, like, who's gonna die next?" But it was just so comedic that it was like, I could not stop watching it, and honestly, since then, like, Scream 1 through 4 have been some of my favorite films, and it's probably honestly my favorite horror series to watch. And yeah, I don't like for me, I'm kind of 50-50 on gore. Like I wouldn't say I necessarily go for films that have it, but I will watch films like Saw. But they're just probably not in my top slasher films.
Oh, okay. Wait, you'd say that like something like Saw would not be in your top films, or
Probably not. I do enjoy the
okay.
Saw films. I do. Like I can sit and watch them. I just as far as like every character like Ghostface, Michael, Freddy, Jason, Pennywise,
Oh, the
like
icons.
between yeah, Chucky, like all the icons. Jigsaw probably wouldn't be in my top 3. Um, but I do still enjoy the films. It's just not up there.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really the the character, he's just some dude's
Exactly.
puppet.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And so, like, honestly, I don't even know if because I know a lot of people do classify it as a slasher. I honestly don't really know if I would consider it because it's kind of more torture. So I wouldn't really say it was a slasher film, but yeah, if you technically go by what everyone else says, it's not my favorite slasher film.
oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, to be honest, I didn't I didn't finish Saw. I think I fell asleep. Um,
Yeah.
I Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good for the budget it was made for, and it was
Oh, for
interesting
sure.
how they did it in like these limited settings, but I don't know, I mean, it was not I didn't think it was that good, some of the scenes. But I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you'd say it's more slashers for you though, like talking about Scream. Uh do you like the more kind of campy ones, or do you like more of the serious ones, or because you were mentioning a lot of the horror icons, and usually those are more to me, I'd say they're more like silly and not like
Yeah.
more you're supposed to take it seriously.
Oh, yeah. I think that's what I love about it is that I don't really take them like seriously. Like the amount of times Michael Myers came back to life just pop up after being shot or stabbed, like, multiple times. Like, I know, like, that's what makes it funny to me is, like, it's not possible, but because it's in its, like, own little like, I don't know, it's just something that draws me back each time. Like, especially Scream, but I know Scream's not the same, but it's just, like, it's so comedic and it's so silly, especially when you're watching some of the chase scenes and, like, Ghostface is tripping over everything when it's supposed to be, like, the main girl, and it's just so funny to watch, and I think that's why I really prefer slashers is just because they have these moments where it's just like, "What the hell just happened?" And it just makes you wanna keep watching it, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I like slashers, but I'd say I like more serious horror films. Like
Mhm.
my main ones are, I'd say, like Alien,
Oh, that's a good one.
Psycho, Jaws. I don't know if you would consider Jaws a horror film, but I like that one. You said The Shining, that one's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I really like all of the Jordan Peele horror films. I did a whole podcast on that. Nope, Get Out, Us. Those are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Thing. That's really good.
Okay, yeah. Another one, which I totally just blanked on, Evil Dead 2 from me is one of my top films as well. I love Bruce Campbell so much in that. I definitely think it's one of the silliest films ever, but it's I just love it. I love it.
Yeah, Sam Raimi directed that one, right?
Yeah, him and
Yeah,
his brother Ted both worked on it, yeah.
yeah. I always wanted to look into those because I really liked the Spider-Man films, but I never watched those yet. Those they look really good. Uh,
I would. Evil Dead 2 is the best one. Evil Dead 2 by far is my favorite Evil Dead film.
they had to make it better when they made the sequel, I guess.
Yep. 100%. It's so much better than the first one.
You said you like slashers. Did you like the Descent?
I actually don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that one's pretty good. I mean, it has a lot of blood, so you know, I mean, you
Well,
said you're
I'm
50-50,
well, I'm
so it's maybe win, but what's up?
I I'm actually good with blood. I'm good with gore.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I can sit there, I can watch it and not be phased. I think the only reason I'm kind of 50-50 is when I feel like films kinda overdo it, which is why I'm, like, 50-50 with Saw. 'Cause they kinda overdo it when they're doing these, like and I know they have to because 'cause they're trying to make it realistic, but it's just, like, that's what kinda turns me away, but, if they have just, like, like, small moments in films, like, I'm totally fine with it. Like, blood doesn't really phase me in horror films.
Oh, okay. Do you like the older like horror films? Like
Yes.
Nosferatu or
Yeah, I
Psycho?
yeah, Psycho, any Universal monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy. I love those films. That's what I grew up with. That was basically my introduction to horror was Universal monsters. So I have a very deep appreciation for those films.
Yeah. I like those films. I actually have never. I don't know if I should say that. I just I didn't watch any of you know the Universal uh horror films with all the monsters in it. They looked really good, and I know all of them just by going to Universal and seeing them, like the
Yeah.
posters. But I don't know. I know I watched Nosferatu. I had to watch that for a class, but I really liked that one. And Psycho is just I really like that one a lot because I like those classical horror films
Yeah.
because they're just very not simple, but I guess simple, like they just stick to what they were doing in back then, and it worked, and I think it
Yeah.
still works today.
Yeah, I love that, and especially with the Universal monsters, because it was still it was black and white, same with Psycho. Like, they're really, not working with a whole lot, but it's still such an amazing performance, and, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but there's these comedians called Abbott and Costello
Mm.
around the same time frame, but they actually did, like, a collaboration with Universal for each monster, so it's basically just an hour and a half of a full comedy film with the Universal monsters, and I remember I grew up with that as well, and that I loved that so much, and yeah, I really think that's where it all started, between those films and probably, like, Goosebumps was started, like, horror fanatic phase, and then it just kinda grew from there.
Yeah. You were saying something about the psychological
Mhm,
aspect. I mean, you like psychological thrillers or horror films.
mhm.
Did you? That's one of my favorites. It's not really. It's kind of like a lot of people don't like it, but a lot of people do like it. The Lighthouse. Did you like that one,
I don't think
or did
that's
you
one I've
watch it?
seen either.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
okay.
think that's one I've seen, because I like psychological thrillers, but it's also not one of my like, I think I watch more slasher films than I do kinda psychological thrillers. Um, yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
So you've I don't know if I would consider this more a slasher or psychological. Did you like American Psycho?
Oh, yeah. I love that. That one I would consider slasher, I would say. There's way too many death scenes in there. I love that one. I thought Christian Bale, he did an amazing job. He really did. And I think that's such an iconic character too, Patrick Bateman. Like, you know, everyone just knows the scene with him and Jared Leto, and they automatically just know American Psycho. But I really do. I love that one. I think it was definitely a new take on a slasher, which I feel like we honestly haven't really seen in a long time, which I really liked.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know this. It was because I don't really notice too many movies directed by like women, especially ones that are like horror. And I didn't know that was directed by a woman until like recently, and I was like, I didn't know that because just the subject matter. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I didn't think it was. And no, I like that movie a lot. It made me interested in listening to Huey Lewis in the News, I gotta say. And it was just, yeah, it was just really, really good. Definitely interesting because I know my friend for Halloween, he dressed up as Patrick Bateman, and he had the uh like raincoat on with the paint, and I thought that was really
Yeah.
funny. And he
Yeah.
looked exactly like him, so I try to, keep my distance. But yeah, I mean, I don't really watch too many slashers, but I do find them like interesting and funny. I definitely liked that Scream, the first one, because I actually did not watch the other ones.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, I I think it's hard to mix humor with horror. I don't know if
Yeah.
you agree, but it's just, I mean, I think it's easy with some movies, but I think just overall it definitely takes like really good writing to make it work, or at least just, to not take it seriously,
Yeah, I also think it really does depend on the actor as well, because I remember, because I'll just kind of put this out there. I go to horror conventions, and so I've met quite a bit of people, and I had actually talked with Matthew Lillard about his take on Stu and the first Scream. And he told me how he thought he was almost overdoing it by being funny, and he thought that the movie was gonna fail because he was kind of adding that comedy aspect into it when he was supposed to be serious. And I think just because of how he is naturally, like, you know, it's so easy for him to make people laugh that it was easy to kind of incorporate it being funny, and especially kind of how Stu bounces off of Randy, like, those 2 as, like, a comedic pair, like, I think it fit really well, but it was definitely because of the actors. Like, you have to have the right actors, I think, in order for it to be successful, because people could try to be funny in a horror film, and it just won't work because, you could tell it's forced, versus when you have people who are actually like, comedic and, like, that's kind of their natural way, then it's easier to, like, tell it's not fake, and it just kinda makes it all natural and more believable, so I definitely think it depends on the actor.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's probably actors that are just selectively picked usually for horror films. Would you
Mhm.
say so?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Um, I know there's probably a lot that been in other horror projects and probably got reached out to. I think most of the ones who I've met, though, it was never really a first, like, "Oh my god, like, you're the person." It's always kind of been, like, they still had to go for callbacks. So I think more so nowadays with the horror genre, I think it's more likely for someone to just reach out an actor or an actress to portray a role, but I think back then when the slashers films were happening, a little bit harder.
Yeah. I was gonna yeah say I like a good amount of horror films that have comedy in it. Like I said, the Scream and feel like Get Out had some humor in it. I don't
Mhm.
know if you've heard of this one. I like this one a lot. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't know. Funny Games. I really liked that one.
I don't think I've heard of that one. No.
But yeah, that one's interesting because it was made by this director, and he made. Oh yeah, well, every movie's made with the director. I would assume. I would assume. There he made two versions of it. It's just one in his language. I forgot what language it was originally in. I think Sweden, and
Okay.
then he made another one that was in English, and it was just with different actors and everything. And it feels like exactly the same movie, but
Mm.
just in English. And I thought
Yeah.
that yeah, it's uh I think I prefer the original just from because I watched the original with that was in a different language and I liked that one. So when I saw clips from the English one, I was like, yeah, I mean
Yeah.
actors are
I
a lot
get
better
that
in the
feeling.
original.
Oh, 100%. I get that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh oh, I was gonna say too, with slashers,
Mhm.
I I don't know. I mean besides them, just making Scream and Saw and stuff like that. I don't know if they're really throwing too many slashers out nowadays. I guess there's the Terrifier movies. I didn't watch those, but they do look kind of interesting.
Terrifier's Terrifier is good. I think it's another one where if you can stomach gore, then yeah, watch it. If you can't stomach gore, don't watch it. Um, but yeah, no, definitely newer slashers. It's harder to create those films because there's already so many iconic ones with like similar storylines. If you try to recreate another one nowadays, like you could sit there, watch it, and be like, that feels exactly like Halloween, or like, oh wow, that was like a similar scene in like Friday the 13th. Like I just feel like because they're gonna be inspired by the 80s slashers, 90s slashers, it's really hard to create your own just because the storylines are probably gonna be the same, or the idea of the slasher might be the same, and I think that's why they're doing more remakes than they are creating, because they could just take the older film, tweak it a little bit, but keep the same storyline, and then that way they don't have to try to make their own, and it definitely sucks, but, it's definitely harder, I think, for writers nowadays to create their own.
Oh yeah, definitely. They probably feel a little intimidated by the
Yeah.
older films. So that's
Yeah.
probably why they just stick to the stuff that's already been made and been doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh I mean, I don't know. I think the last ones I've seen that I would consider slasher in a way is The Menu and Malignant. I don't know.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
ones were I mean, I felt like The Menu wasn't too slasher based, but I definitely can see where it's like, whoa. Oh, and a lot of these are just like very serious. And they're not like you're like talking about slasher because I feel like every time I hear slasher, I don't think I'll ever I don't think I'll really see ones where it's like it's trying to take itself seriously. I think all of them are going to be like all goofy. So when I bring these up where it's like violent, I'm like, I don't even know if I would consider those like what you're. I mean, of course, you're just saying slasher, but just the ones you were talking about, like
Yeah.
Scream. I watched Predatory a while back, and oh wait, yeah, I watched that a while back, but I mainly remember watching Midsummer, and I thought that was insane. I did not
Yeah.
think I would finish that, but that was really. Did you do you like the ones that take itself seriously more, or do you like the ones that are more goofy?
Um, I would say it's probably 60% to 40%. 60% I enjoy more of the comedic. The 40%, yeah, it's like, yeah, the more serious ones. I just think if it's almost too serious in a way, it could kind of take away from it. Um, but I, because you could have a comedic one and still have jump scares or still have that element, and so it doesn't have to be fully serious. Um, which is why I think I prefer the slasher films because it has its moments where it's like, oh my god, like this is horrifying, and then you could be laughing like 10 minutes later. And so I think I have like more love in my heart for those than I do the serious ones.
Oh, okay. Do you have any other favorite horror films you'd like to bring up that you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but we didn't really talk about it. But it's a film called Lost Boys, and I feel like it's getting more love nowadays. But it's an '80s vampire film, and it honestly has some. I mean, like it has Kiefer Sutherland, so Corey Feldman. It has Corey Haim. I absolutely adore that film. It's one of my favorites. It's one where it's pretty much all prosthetics, and when you kind of hear about the makeup like progress of it, like it's very impressive for the 1980s. And I don't know, I just feel like a lot of people don't appreciate that film because they watched Twilight, but it's a better vampire film by far.
The Lost Boys is the
Yes.
better. So you don't like any of the? I mean, you like the Lost Boys more than any of the like Dracula films.
Um, Probably not Dracula. Like I love the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi. I really do. But I would say just kind of overall, I enjoyed this one more. But it's another one of those where it's like it has the comedic aspect of it. So I can sit there and kind of laugh and then it'll have the serious moments. But yeah, I don't know what it was about that, but I saw that when I was like 11 and it became like one of my top horror films. Love it so much.
You were talking about prosthetics. There's I think I said the Thing is one of my favorite horror films.
Yes.
I think he used a bunch. I mean, he used prosthetics from my knowledge. I think he also used just like tech, like just animatronics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You like the more practical effects, you'd say, for horror films?
100%. Uh, I really wish we could go back to using practical effects in honestly any film. I think the closest horror film or most recent that I've seen that has been more practical has been Conjuring. Conjuring is the last one I've really seen where besides slasher films, because slasher films, it's an easy way to make it practical, but to take something a step above, the last one I've really seen is Conjuring, because nothing will ever match what they did for Exorcist and what they did for American Werewolf in London, and I think too many studios nowadays depend on the CGI for it. I we won't ever see stuff like that again, but they really need to bring it back because that was top notch.
Yeah, I just feel like the process nowadays is just to use more do everything in post just to have like shorter like shooting days and to be able to work with the shooting schedules cuz I mean that's kind of why they don't use cheaper cameras or and stuff like that for movies. It's just because they're so used to using the REs and stuff like that. So they
Yeah.
just are used to a certain thing. But I do feel like they should do that though, because
Oh,
you
for
know
sure.
it's interesting to use practical effects over CGI because uh, it's kind of going with more of the director's vision instead of just the people in post production.
Yeah, 100%. I think too, like, CGI, like, it's so easy to tell, like, it doesn't make anything realistic when you watch like, this is my favorite 2 favorite films for practical effects, Exorcist and American Werewolf in London. Their practical effects and the way they filmed was just phenomenal, and I wish people nowadays would follow the same steps, but I know it would just be too much work for them and be too costly because those were some serious, like, causing injuries, like, long processes, and I know studios aren't willing to do that today, but it just made the films 100 times better.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like if you're gonna do the stuff where it's like it just has something to do with someone's body being messed with or something, and I just do prosthetic. But if it's like really like out of this world, then try. But like I would assume that a lot of them are just gonna do CGI. But I feel like the problem is that a lot of these people are just putting too much CGI in it where they don't really need to, but they do.
Yeah.
It's fine
Mhm.
that they use CGI, but they just use too much of it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's we've become very dependent on CGI, and I really do think it's ruining some films. Like, even just outside of, like, the horror genre, just other, like, action films, like, they push their limits of CGI, and I think it's slowly ruining the movies because it's almost too much, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I would watch the original King Kong before I watch the the one from the like 2003 or something by person
Yeah.
that did Lord of the Rings. Oh, I can't remember anyone's name today. But yeah, I really liked oh, did you watch the original King Kong?
I have, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I would consider that one too much horror, but I definitely like that one. That one's really good.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say, like, King Kong or Godzilla is really a horror film. I don't
Yeah.
think there's really any aspects to that that really make it horror. Um, I honestly would probably just kinda put those under, like, action or sci-fi. Like, I wouldn't really classify it as horror personally.
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, I mean, I like all those films though that we've talked about. Do you have any other that you'd like to say that are your favorite horror films? Or do you want to go to the next topic, talk about
Mm,
your least favorite horror films?
I I don't know, I feel like we covered a good majority of them because honestly, most of my favorite films just kind of involve, like, the OG slashers, so kinda repetitive, but
Oh,
yeah.
that's fine. All right then. Let's go to next topic. Least favorite horror films. What would you say is your like least favorite horror films?
Least favorite. Good one. Um, Personally, this is for me. I didn't like Scream 5. It was not my favorite, and it hurts coming from someone who Scream is, like, their favorite horror franchise. I didn't like Scream 5. I thought there was a lot of informational issues. I don't really think the writers or the directors took the time to really pay attention to any of the other sequels. Like, they got a lot of information wrong, which is what I think threw me off of the film because it just kind of showed they didn't do their research. So that kind of peeved me about it, and so that's not one that I really choose to watch at all, like, at all. Um, what other one was it? Um, oh, um, Halloween Kills. I didn't like that one.
Halloween Kills.
Did not
Hmm.
like that. I like the kill scenes. I like those.
Just not the
But
Halloween part.
the plot, I hated it. Like, so repetitive. I hated it. Um, what other ones? Um,
Mainly
Probably
just don't like sequels.
most any newer sequels. Um, I didn't like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Hmm.
Didn't like that. Um, the new Texas Chainsaw that was on Netflix. Again, kill scene wise, pretty good. Plot wise, I couldn't stand it. I didn't like it. Um, what? Oh, uh, the newer Exorcist.
Hmm.
I did not like that. There's a
But
lot.
you liked all the
Honestly,
kill
a
scenes.
lot. I mean, I honestly, I think my biggest issue a lot is kind of what they're labeling as the remakes or the sequels nowadays, because I don't think it does justice to the original films. I really don't think so. Uh, oh, Child's Play 27, was it 2017? Think so. That was horrible. It was the worst Chucky film I've ever seen.
That was with
Um,
Mark Hamill.
yeah. Which is sad
Yeah.
to say because I love Mark Hamill, but that was not a good film. Um, Trying to think of what else. Um, what's come out? Um, Trying to think. I think the ones where it's just like I won't really watch them again. But I do have just like some horror films where it's just like I was kind of like nitpicking at some of them and I just didn't like certain aspects of it, but yeah, I think those are probably my least favorite for now.
You don't have any least favorites where it was just the first film and it was just really bad?
Was there? Um, Honestly, I think it's more of the sequels that were the issues with me because a lot of the ones that I would go back and watch, like Hellraiser, I love the first Hellraiser, but I didn't really like the sequels or the remake. Um, as far as first ones, um, honestly, no. I think most of the films I've watched Or I wasn't really fond of Happy Death Day. That wasn't my favorite. I
Mhm.
think I only watched the first one once, and then I didn't even bother watching the sequel of it. I think that's the only one where I've seen the first one and haven't actually gone back to watch it.
Yeah, it's like horror, Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah, it was I mean, cool concept, but was not my favorite whatsoever. I
Mhm.
didn't like it. But, yeah, I think most of the ones, it was like, I would really like the first film, the original, but then I would get, like, into the sequels or remakes, and that's kind of where it lost me. I didn't really like those.
Yeah, I think they did one recently where it was a Freaky Friday film, but it was like a
It was
horror.
yeah.
Yeah,
That
and that
one
kinda
was
reminded me of that
decent.
one.
Yeah, that one I was kind of like, "This is a cool concept." It still wasn't my favorite. Yeah, that one, but yeah, it's interesting, that's for sure. But, I mean, Blumhouse is doing a good job, like, I'll give them applause, like, some of the horror films they're coming out with, like, they're doing pretty good. Um, but yeah, it's just those 2 was kind of throwing me off. I wasn't sure how that was going.
Oh, definitely. Uh, no, I mean, I I don't really have too many that I'm like I don't really like them
Mhm,
as well, but I do gotta say, my thing, I know you liked a lot of them that were like, comedy and horror. To
mhm,
be honest, I don't really like those too much.
yeah,
Actually, one of my least favorite horror films, I actually don't like it too much. The Exorcist. I actually don't like that one that much.
yeah.
Mainly just because I just thought it was like trying to be edgy and stuff like that, and it unlike Scream, it wasn't like a full on like story. It was I mean, it was a story. It just I didn't really feel like it was I don't know. It didn't it didn't fit all. Like everything didn't fit in my opinion. It didn't I didn't like
I
how it
think
was. What's up?
think I think the issue with Exorcist was how long the film was, and I think that's probably why, because they tried to drag it on to be like, "Oh, look, like, it just doesn't happen in, a month." Like, it, like, drags on, and I think that was the biggest issue because all of the suspense that we've kind of been waiting for happens within the last, like, 20 minutes of the film. So it does kind of ruin it in that aspect.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was kind of cool all the stuff like she was floating and she was doing some weird poses I don't even think I could do. Maybe I'll try later. But I don't know. It was just kind of it was not the right type of goofy for me, and I did not
Yeah,
like it too much. But
yeah.
it was all right. I maybe the newer one will bring something else to it, unless it's
No.
basically the exact same thing.
No, don't waste your time on it. Um
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be able to watch it for free, so it's all good. But
That's true. If you don't have to spend money on it, don't. But, um, yeah, I also think the biggest difference when we watch the older films now is because we're at such a different, like, time period, it's harder for us to get scared of what they got scared of. Like, my dad was terrified of The Exorcist, wouldn't let me watch it, and I watched it and I wasn't terrified. Same thing with my mom, like, she showed me A Nightmare on Elm Street. And she was like, "The first time I watched it, I wasn't able to fall asleep after. I watched it and I fell asleep perfectly fine." Like, I think it's different back then because that Exorcist was kind of a film nobody saw, and it was, like, the first of its kind, really, and that's why it freaked people out, you know? And so I
mm,
think it really does depend on, like, the time. I'm like, because there's multiple Exorcist films now. There's multiple, possession films. We've been there, done that, seen it, so kind of watching the older ones, like, it doesn't freak you out as much.
Yeah. I don't know if I mean that could be it, but I feel like another thing too is that, you know, there are older films that we see and that we're not as scared of, but we still think they're good films.
Yeah,
I think Jaws is not scary at all, and that one's still a good film. I think Psycho is kind of scary, but it's not that scary in comparison. But it's still a really great film, and I really don't think it affects the me personally how much I get scared by it. I don't think I would get too scared by Scream, even though I get a little bit scared, and it's just because it's a good film. So
yeah.
I don't know if it's about that, but it could be. I just gotta maybe I just gotta rewatch it again, and then I'll be like, "Yep, this is really bad." But who knows?
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I feel the same way about because I don't know if I could ever watch a parody film unless it's like Funny Games, which is one of my favorite horror films, and be like, "Yeah, this is a good horror film." I mean, so it is
yeah,
I think it also does have to do with how scary it is. So, like,
yeah.
something like, Cabin in the Woods, I actually don't like that much.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Oh, yeah. Me with Blair Witch, like, you kinda watch it, and you could get the suspense, and you kinda go like, "Oh, do I really wanna go
Oh, the
camping now?"
original?
Yeah, the original.
Mhm.
And it's like, "Do I kinda wanna go camping now?" Not really,
Yes.
but at the same time, like, you don't really get scared when you watch it, and, like, I really think it depends too, yeah, like, when it came out and kind of, like, if it's more of, like, you like it for appreciation or because, like, you could actually get scared, like, Nightmare on Elm Street, I personally just love the character of Freddy Krueger. I love the random times he just decides to curse at you, like, I feel like it's so funny, like, you have this dude chasing you, and he's just, sitting there calling you a bitch the whole entire time, and it's like it's like, I love that type of moment, but, like, that doesn't mean that the film was good. Like, you can obviously tell what was fake and what was not, but I just I think when you fall in love with the character, that's when you kind of, like, start to fall in love with the film.
Yeah. Did you, like, the It films?
I did, yeah. I actually like both. I like Tim Curry's, and I also like, Bill's version of
Mhm.
Pennywise. I like both of them.
Oh, yeah, that's good. I didn't watch the Tim Curry ones, but I did
Mhm.
see, reviews and clips of it, and I think it looks pretty good. But the newer ones, chapter 1 was pretty good, but I didn't really like chapter 2. I thought it was a little weird. I like their portrayal though. And that's why I think you brought up their names because their portrayals are pretty good, for
Yeah.
these characters. But the second film was just a little weird.
I
They were just roasting him and then he was just
That's
shrinking.
what I hate. Yeah, I hated that. I mean,
Mhm.
I've never read the book. Shame on me, but
Yeah,
I never
read,
read
come
the
on.
book. Um, but I don't think that happened in the film, but, that was one of the shittiest endings I've ever seen in a film. I hated it. Like, that was worse than Halloween Ends for me. Like, I I don't know, I just like you said, like, them just bullying him and being like, "You're so small now." Like, okay,
You're a
like,
clown.
yeah, yeah, that's how you defeat an alien. Like, okay. Like, I didn't understand that. Like, I thought it was good going up because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, wow, like, these actors, like, they're really accurate to the younger cast, like, they did such a good job at casting." And then they did that at the end, and it's like, "Oh, okay." Like, that's what we're doing now? Like, alright.
Yeah. Um, I didn't like how they were that's how they defeated him, and I did like the older versions of the characters, but
Mhm.
at the same time, that's how it ended, and also it was not as good as the first one
Yep.
because I feel like the first one knew what they were gonna do for that one, but then later they were like, okay, we know what needs to happen, but how? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll just do what we do. So I I didn't like the second one as much, but
Yeah.
it
Totally
was
understandable.
okay. Uh
Yeah.
I think when it comes to those films, the uh like, it and just other, I guess, like The Thing and Alien,
Mhm.
I'd say I really wish, you know, and because Alien and The Thing, both of them have this like, y- I don't know. You've heard of cosmic horror, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like uh, cosmic horror. That concept because it's
Mhm.
just where it's kind of like it's mainly used in fiction, like when you're writing something like like a story that's like a book or something. And I like that because, it's kind of you have to imagine it and it's not really something you can just see on screen. But at the same time,
Yeah.
when you have to execute it, you have to do it really, really good. So I think it's really cool when you do it in like The Thing. It's like you can't really tell what it is, and also it changes each time. So it's like, what?
Yeah.
Um, with something like it, I feel like it should have been more like that because it's an alien, So, but
Yep.
at the same time, it's just these, creatures that I think a lot of us have seen before. I think some of them were pretty creative, but some of them were just like, oh, it's just you know, uh like a walking version of the clown or something like that. I
Yeah.
think they definitely did a lot better in that one than the original it because wasn't it just like a spider in the original ones?
Yeah, and yeah, because I think especially because of the budget then, I think
Yeah.
they were just really trying to stick with, like, "Oh, yeah, like, he's literally just a clown." So, they didn't have kind of the technology and, like, the ability to expand, and, I mean, they could have done it through prosthetics, but I think with the way they went about doing the film and kind of having it being the combination of both the younger cast and the older cast, I just think they were doing a lot at the time that there's no way they could have done that, versus this one, they were like, "Yeah, we'd split this into 2 films and, like, see where we go from there." But, yeah, I think the changing in these ones, pretty good. Like, I think it kinda showed off his abilities more, but it's still yeah, that 2nd film, I don't think it was as good. I think it was just mostly him in the clown outfit, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good costume for Halloween, so.
That's true.
uh yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have too many movies where I'd say it's my least favorite. Do you have any other ones before we go to the last topic?
Honestly, not really. I think because that list could probably go on forever. I just think it's mainly I'll put this as my statement. There's certain films in the franchise where it starts to go downhill and it's never revived. So, pretty much most sequels or I dislike.
Yeah, you think you should be in charge of the sequels that are being made
Yes.
of these films?
Yes.
You make them
I
so
think
much better.
people yes, I think people need to know when to stop
Oh, so
making them.
you would just stop them. You wouldn't even try to make them better.
Yeah, there's, like, 10 saws. Like, who needs 10 saws? I'm sorry, like,
One for
Days
each finger.
Oh my god, I didn't even think of that. That'd be funny. Yeah, I don't know, but all those Halloween films, not needed. Yeah. I just think there should have been an ending point, and yeah,
Well, I don't know what you're
so
talking about because Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, they just keep living, so they got to keep getting more films.
yeah,
They never
oh, there's
die.
so many better ways they could have done those films, though, like well, I guess the issue I have with the Michael films is the mask, becau because some of those masks are god awful. And Jason actually, you know what? I don't have any issues with the sequels of Friday the 13th because I love Kane Hodder. And Kane Hodder's Jason, like, in Manhattan, I love that. Freddy versus Jason, I actually like that film. I think I have more issues with Halloween and
Yeah.
probably the later Nightmare on Elm Streets.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think, Jason, gets away with, being, like repetitive, but then these two, icons are just like, it got really tired fast.
I think the thing with Jason is when you watch the first film, he's not even in the first film. Like, you know of him, but he's not in the film. And then
Hmm.
even in the second film, when it is him, he still doesn't have his iconic hockey mask. So really, you don't see that version of him until part 3, and then it kind of takes off from there. And I think that's what kept it going was like the first 3, like he didn't have his iconic look, and so versus like Nightmare on Elm Street, like you know what Freddy Krueger looks like. Halloween, you know what Michael Myers looks like. Like it's kind of the same. Like it's not the same aspect. And I think Kane Hodder's was probably just the best version because it was like the kills were so stupid that like you kind of sit there and laugh and be like, "What the hell?" Or like, "Why is Jason in New York? Like, isn't this man supposed to be at a camp?" Like, I think it's just the wild aspects of it were what made it good instead of kind of keeping it, you know, all in one place.
Hmm. It also adds to the character each time, like you're saying, like they evolved him. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, like you gotta like add more to them and just keep it new, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like obviously stick with what works. Uh all right then. Do you have a just want to go to the next topic?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, guilty pleasure horror films. I feel like, these are basically just what we like, but we feel bad that we like, or maybe we don't, but we're just gonna say we feel guilty about them. So, do you have any of those?
Terrifier.
Terrifier.
Aw.
All right.
Like, I feel like they're so gory, and I feel like I
Mhm.
shouldn't be able to stomach it, but, like, I do. And, like, I don't know. Like, every
If you
time I
did
tell
centipede.
somebody the the I think the biggest one that everybody can agree on is Tusk. I love Justin Long with all my heart, but I don't even know what that movie was. I I don't even know. I don't wanna know what went through the writer's mind, the director's mind. I really don't.
Oh my. Yeah, I don't know. My
Oh,
friend at work, he wanted to put Terrifier 2 as his favorite movie, but they
yeah.
said no, so he had to
Okay,
put
yep.
Caroline instead. So, Coraline, not Caroline. That one's a good one. Uh, from what I know, I gotta watch
Yeah,
that. But
Terrifier
yeah,
Terrifier is a new level of fucked up. It
oh, why is
really
that?
the kill scenes.
Oh,
They like, I think it's worse than Saw, if I'm being honest. I really
dang.
do. Like, some of the scenes in it, I couldn't even imagine. Like, they go beyond, cause like, I feel like Saw is pretty straightforward. They'll be like, "Yeah, you're in a trap where it's like, if you don't get out, you know,
You
like,
die.
yeah, you die." Like, it's pretty straightforward. Like, Terrifier, some of these kill scenes, oh my god. Like, I feel like that's what's shocking about it is because like, you can watch, like, Scream and Halloween and, like, Friday the 13th, Chucky, and, like, yeah, you'll see some blood, but,
Yeah.
like, it's never been to the degree of Terrifier. Terrifier is a whole new level, and, yeah, I mean, I actually had read somewhere where it was, like, at showings of part 2, they were handing out, like, throw up bags
Oh,
because
okay,
people are
for
getting
popcorn,
sick
right?
to throw up in, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mix it in, but, yeah, I heard, like, that was to the degree of it, and so, I mean, yeah, Terrifier, yeah, that's a oof.
Yeah, and they played those in the theaters, so, like, like, the main, like, chain, so
Yeah,
I'm
and
surprised they played those.
I think part 3 is gonna come out in theaters too, so
Oh,
I don't
nice.
I don't even know. That's probably gonna be worse.
Yeah, can't wait to
But
see Barf in a bunch of those
oh,
buckets.
I will feel bad for you, yeah. It's
Well, if
gonna
they
be a
do it in
night
the bucket, it'll be fine.
true, just hopefully not everywhere.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think those ones, just because it's so gory that I feel like it's not something that somebody could sit and watch, but, like, I feel like that's probably my biggest one. Um, yeah, because I don't like Tusk. Tusk is weird. Human Centipede is weird. I don't I can't fuck with it. I really can't.
Yeah, well, I don't know, I mean, I don't have too many guilty pleasures because I don't feel guilty about anything I do. Okay, well, I'm not gonna say that because then just sounds like an absolute statement. I don't wanna I don't wanna commit to that. But I will say that there are some that I'm like, I like them, but I know they're not that good. So that's my definition of a guilty
Okay.
pleasure right now. Uh, you know, I did say I like the Jordan Peele films, like the horror films. I don't really like Us that much.
Oh,
I mean, I
that's okay, I
like
don't
it,
like
but
it either.
I like it, but I know it's not that good. And then Last Night in Soho, I really like Edgar Wright as a director,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah.
I thought that one was not that good. But
Yeah,
I really thought the plot twist was kind of dumb, but
yeah.
you know. And then Malignant, that was just
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of
that one
like
was
weird, but I kind of liked it. I don't know. Oh, that new one, Five Nights at Freddy's. Uh,
oh, yeah.
I thought that
Um,
was interesting, but you know, uh, it's not that good.
it's yeah, I understand that they're not going based off the games, but I feel like they probably should have changed more of the names. I also felt the plot twist, for me, was pretty predictable,
And
so,
yeah, they set it up so that
yeah,
uh,
I wasn't very shocked at all by it.
yeah.
Um, but I can't hate, they got Matthew Lillard in there,
Oh
so
yeah,
I can't hate on that, but, it wasn't my favorite, but I know a lot of people love it, but I think that's just because 'cause they're diehard Five Nights at Freddy's fans, and they've kind of been waiting for this film, so I understand why people like it, but it's
yeah.
for
They
me,
definitely
it's
got the hype behind it, but they definitely did not put the effort.
production. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all about story with FNAF, and if you don't really have a
Yeah.
good story, it's not the best. But I don't know. I mean, I have to definitely say that, it's a film that I have to appreciate because, it is something where it's like, oh, it's close to me in that way because I used to like
Yeah.
FNAF a lot. Now I don't, but only because I feel like it's just gotten so weird after the after FNAF, I'd say Ultimate Custom Night. It just got
Yeah.
weird. Like Help Wanted was all right, but the
Yeah.
other ones and the books, interesting. They had
Yeah.
to really bring Remnant into it and some other
Mhm.
science fiction stuff that I'm not into.
Uh,
So I also thought it was interesting because they're trying to do the first game, but then they're like, "Oh, let's throw in this other lady from Security Breach, make
yeah.
her the daughter." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it was not the daughter in the game. It was some
Yeah.
person that was just uh, mind controlled." I thought it
Yeah,
was,
that
yeah,
it's just yeah, that's I think that was my only issue was they even though the lore is very complicated, Five Nights at Freddy's, I feel like there was a clear setup of who was in the family, wasn't in the family, and I think trying to change that for the film, I think is what's throwing quite a bit of people off. So, I understand not being exactly like it, but I think if you're gonna create a whole new timeline, then it should've just been completely new characters and then maybe, kept, like, William Afton the same or something, but,
yeah.
at least change names so nobody gets confused.
I think the characters are very important in this, but at the same time, I feel like when it comes to a film like this, I feel
Mhm.
like you can make whole different characters and everything, and just like you said, keep William Afton, keep maybe even Henry, and they didn't put Henry in this one, but I think if they just did that, that would be good because you kind of just need to just have the concepts in there and just the world building of
Yeah.
the animatronics killing uh kids, adults. I have not watched. I've not been in the FNAF thing in a while, so I'm just kind of trying to remember. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I remember everything, but then I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I literally am
Yeah.
like, wait, who's Freddy? But
Yeah.
I, yeah, I did. I thought it's definitely a guilty pleasure though, because I will watch it again. But I feel like I would only go to that diner scene just so that I can see that, 15 seconds of Matt Pat on there. That
Yeah.
was very fun.
Yeah. I know, I love the little cameos. Not gonna lie, I liked FNAF when I was younger, I still do, but I think the main parts of it for me were Matthew Lillard and Josh. Like, the 2 of them as actors I already think are really good, so they were the only ones who kinda stuck out to me in the film. Um, because yeah, animatronics, like, they were alright, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite, It's probably not one I would actively watch again. Maybe just for the end scene with Matthew, because his line's so similar to Scream, so maybe
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I don't even know why they picked him for the William Afton. I was always thinking of that, and I'm like, was it because of Scream or was it because of like any other thing he's been in? But I don't know.
I
Like,
don't know. A good
yeah,
question. I mean, he did a great job in Scream, so, like, him playing
he
a
did.
psychopath, very possible. But I think he did in the very short amount of time they gave him, I think he did a pretty good job.
Definitely. I Yeah, I thought it was good overall. Another one. I don't know if you watch this one. It's found footage. Creep. That one I think
I've
is
heard
all
of it,
right.
but I haven't
Yeah,
watched it. I know
yeah, that
about the
was.
found footage stuff, though, yeah.
Yeah, I like. I mean, it's dumb, but it's funny dumb. So I like
Yeah.
that. And then I don't know. It's about it when it comes to guilty pleasures. Do you have any other horror films you just want to like talk about?
Yeah, I actually thought of a couple. I don't know if you've seen it.
Some?
Jeepers Creepers?
No.
I love that one. That one, I
It
wouldn't say it
takes
was a
place
slasher
during the
film.
summer or something, right? Or spring? What's the one about?
I think it's around, yeah, it's like brother and sister, like they're heading back to like, their hometown. Um, and then it's basically back road, middle of nowhere, pretty open space. And just this I guess it's kind of the same like meaning of it, like, oh, he only comes around so many years, blah blah blah. Except I think Jeepers Creepers, like, I don't know what it was about that one, but I really like that one. Part 1 and part 2, both really good. I would highly recommend it. I love Justin Long, but also, like, I think they just did so well. That one was kind of like a mix of prosthetic and, CGI, but I think it was, like, a good mix. Like, it was one where it was like, yeah, like, I could get the CGI in this, like, I could get behind it. Um, but that one was really good. That's one of my favorite
Um,
ones.
you were talking about that recently, about the prosthetics and CGI, and
Mhm.
I think during the least favorite, you were having trouble mentioning some of your least favorite horror films. Do you have any that are just because it used CGI, or do you think that really never ruined the whole entire film for you?
I don't know if CGI ever really ruined the film. I will say one that did have CGI in it. It wasn't like all CGI, but I felt like it was over exaggerated, which kind of made me not like it. Was Conjuring 2.
Hmm.
Um, because they had that part with the Crooked Man, and they actually had an actor who was the Crooked Man. So he was really like really tall, really thin, and so like he was never CGI. But I hated when they started doing the cracks in the walls, like he was moving around, and they were doing. I hated that. I was like, "Is this?" And I think that kind of ruined that part of the film for me because I was like, "What in the world?" Like you went from using like all prosthetics to like CGIing like a bunch of cracks in the walls. Like, what is this? And so I think that kind of made me iffy on Conjuring 2, but I still watch it, but it's not the first one I go towards. Um, is there any other ones really with CGI? Um, Honestly, I think my only issues with CGI are films outside of horror. I don't really think there's because I mainly watch the old films, like I don't really delve into the ones with CGI.
Hmm. Well, then you should don't have a problem though.
Yeah.
but but
I swear it's only Conjuring 2.
well, then that's good. I mean, I think there was some CGI in FNAF, but a good amount of it I felt like it was practical.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think most of it was.
yeah. And then, what were the other ones that you wanted to talk about? The other films.
Oh, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Mm. Oh yeah, that one's a cult classic from my knowledge.
Cult classic, but the cheesiest film ever.
Oh
It's
my.
it's so cheesy, but it's the prosthetics and it's the practical effects that you have to appreciate. Because maybe this is a guilty pleasure of mine. I go to horror conventions. I meet actors who were in horror films. So I
Yeah.
actually met the brothers who created Killer Clowns. And they had talked about their suits, and basically they had, like, built-in fans into the faces of the clown outfits,
Like, yeah, it's gonna be hot in
and
there.
because it was so hot, but also all the mouth movements of the, like, faces of the clowns was all controlled by them. Like, It was all practical, and it was like it was I thought that was really cool to learn, like, from them in person because I never really researched it before until they told me about it.
Well, I mean, now you know. And it's
Yeah.
cool that you meet people that, are in the, scary film industry. You get to just meet all these people and then have these connections if you wanted to get into that field. It'd be easy to get I mean, they would already recognize you. I guess they would just recognize you as a fan, but it'd just be cool
Yeah.
to like, just know all these people because
Yeah,
you
it's pretty cool, yeah, being able to meet them, especially if you look up to them. Like, that was me with Matthew Lillard, like, I went from, like, growing up with him as Shaggy to
yeah,
then watching him in Scream Stew, and so to meet him in person was, like, mind-blowing to me. Like, I don't even know why, but, like, that was, like, peak of my life right there, was meeting Matthew Lillard.
dang. Um yeah, do you have any other films you'd like to talk about?
Sinister, have you ever seen Sinister?
No, I don't think so. I gotta watch
That
more horror
o
films, I guess.
that one's a cool one. That was another one that I believe Blumhouse had done, actually. It was an earlier Blumhouse film, so before it really expanded into a larger universe. But, it
Yeah,
has
that Jason Blum guy is like really a
he's really
genius. Like
good.
he's well, and the main thing with him is that he just buys like every single film that, or not,
Yeah,
like he purchase. I mean, like he produces a bunch of these films, and they don't even have to be that good. They can just like flop or
yeah,
whatever. But he's just behind them, and if he has like a really good one, it does well, and it helps Blumhouse you know get bigger. So that's it's
yeah,
always good.
yeah. But,
Oh, what were
that
you
was
saying about
another one.
Sinister?
It has Ethan Hawke in it, and so he's, like I think he's kind of, like, the Blumhouse guy because he also did Black Phone. But,
Mm,
that one was really good. I remember Sinister was always one of the earlier ones that I had watched and really liked. Pretty creepy. It's not a slasher. This one's definitely more paranormal. So but it's not possession. It's just a paranormal, you know, like weird film. But it was really good. I liked part 1. And part 2 is actually pretty good too.
that's good. Mm. Yeah, I mean,
Trying
a
to
lot of the oh, what's up?
I was just thinking of other horror films. You can continue.
Oh no, I was just saying that. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched too many of the Blumhouse films, but they definitely do seem like they like going for the original ideas. Of course, I know Unfriended looks really interesting, even though it's that one looks like it wouldn't be good. Maybe that would be a guilty pleasure of mine, like because I haven't
Yeah.
watched it and I know it's bad, but maybe
Yeah.
I'll like it because it does seem like there are
It's
some things
definitely
I'm
a
like,
weird one, yeah.
"Oh, you watched it?
Yeah,
Ah, okay."
it's interesting. Uh, yeah, but I think I know, at least from what I've heard, Jason Blum is trying to get rights to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm,
So I
that'd be
know
good.
that. Yeah, so honestly, I don't know if I want another Nightmare on Elm Street remake, but if they get it, they get it. So, you know. But yeah, I mean I liked what he did with Halloween until Kills. But, you know. Yeah. But, no, Blumhouse, I think they're becoming the top-notch horror, besides A24, but I think
Oh
A24
yeah.
still has a little bit to go before they reach the Blumhouse level, to be honest.
Well, A24 is doing horror, but at the same time they're just trying to make like these smaller films, like the
Yeah.
smaller budget films. So I think, I mean, so I think it makes more sense that Blumhouse is doing a lot better than them in the horror film scene because they're just focusing on those and they have a different um like execution too. Like I was saying, they just buy a bunch of stuff. They don't really. I mean, I think A24 is more selective with what it picks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think this is the issue with Blumhouse is I think they're trying to push a lot of films out. I think they kind of need to take their time and not try to like push so many out at once. Just because I do kind of feel like it can get a little bit too much.
Yeah, but I think it's just for making money, which
Yeah.
is most
Oh, for
films.
sure, for sure. Um,
Yeah. Do you have any other ones that you can think of?
it just kind of goes back to the older films like
Oh,
Poltergeist. You know,
oh yeah,
like
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist, A Sixth Sense. I don't think you can really consider Sixth Sense a horror film though, but kind
Yeah,
of
well, I mean, he can never go back to that. Let's just say,
yeah.
Shyamalan. He's always gonna just be known for that one.
Yeah,
All
that
the
is
other ones
true.
after that, I mean, I guess if you want to count Avatar, I guess.
I guess.
But
But
uh, oh, would you consider that new one that he made a horror film or something else? What was it?
which
A Knock at the Cabin.
I don't know. I feel like that's another to me that's like another thriller. I don't know if I would put it under horror. Like I think this is where for me it's kind of hard is because it's like a lot of the ones that are paranormal, I put them under like thriller instead of kind of like
Mhm.
horror. Because to me, when I look at like the horror genre, I kind of see like the weird type of films, like the ones, kind of like with aliens, slashers, like stuff like that. But I think the ones that kind of deal with just like paranormal, they're more of like a thriller to me. Like I don't really see them as like horror. Like maybe that's just me, but yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, sorry. What film were we? I forgot what film we were just talking about.
Um,
Uh,
think you said knock at the cabin, knock at the
yeah, Knock at the Cabin. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I thought it was all right. Not a guilty pleasure. That would probably be my least favorite. But
Yeah.
yeah, I gotta check out the Sixth Sense because that one seemed pretty good from what I
It
could tell.
was. I think that was the point where my mom realized like I'm not like terrified of horror because instead of being terrified, I actually cried. But I was also like 10, okay? Like I think
Oh,
I
okay.
was young,
Very good parents then.
but yeah.
I'm
So,
sorry.
but yeah, that I mean that one was good. Like Bruce Willis, like yeah, I totally like like did not see any twist coming, plot twist whatsoever. And so, yeah, that was a good film, but I think it's more psychological thriller. It's not really a horror film to me. It's kind of like the same as Shining in a way.
Yeah. All right then. So, you have you have no other films you'd like to mention?
No, I think that's it.
All right. So, yeah, I think we could end it there. Did you Trinity, did you have anything you'd like to shout out, any social medias or anything you're doing right now for yeah.
Sure. If anyone wants to see the horror conventions I've been to or anything like that, you could follow my Instagram. It's baby ghoul. So you want to follow it, go ahead. But that's where you'll get all the updates on my horror adventures.
All right. That's good. Um yeah, so yeah, let me know how you feel about Trinity in the comments below. Let me know if you'd like to hear from her again. I sure do. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast, and you'll see me next week talking to somebody else about something else. So yeah, just I hope you liked hearing having this Halloween episode about horror films. And yeah, see you next week. All right, bye.